Welcome to Altar of the Demo Gods. If you're wondering what advice from two experienced sales engineers sounds like, it's a little like this.
Welcome back to Altar of the Demo Gods. I'm joined here with my co-host, John Morton. John, how are you doing tonight?
Ahoy, hoy, Keith. Living that dream.
John, I want you to guess where I was yesterday. It's in Florida. I'll give you that. That's where we'll start.
Oh, man. The first thought that crossed my mind was Disney.
Close. I landed at that airport.
Okay. My second thought was Cheaters, the strip club.
No, no, I wouldn't go all the way to Florida for that. That's quite.
Hey, man, I put my guesses out there.
Yeah, no. So I was at Kennedy Space Center speaking at
Nice.
the Metals and Mining ISAC conference. It was nice. I got to just give a little talk out there. But what I enjoyed more than anything was watching some of the other speakers. It's a different side of security that I don't normally get to see.
Yeah. Wow.
So it was interesting. That and just being at Kennedy Space Center is a pretty cool venue to have a talk. Unfortunately, they didn't have any launches scheduled because it's you not only have NASA that launches there in Cape Canaveral, you also have Blue Origin and SpaceX have launches there as well.
You know what's a sad fact that I'm going to tell you right now? The
What's
reason I threw out Cheaters, the strip club, is because when I used to work for the Navy, I used to go to Port Canaveral. There was actually a naval station right at Kennedy Space Center where we did torpedo stuff. So degenerate, but we were close. I was close.
You were close. You were close. Yeah, if my girlfriend's listening to this, I did not go to Cheaters.
It's not on Keith's credit card. We are good. He was at Kennedy Space Center. No.
Yeah.
So it was a good experience, huh?
Yeah, it was. But it was just really cool to be there, right? Even though no rockets were launching or anything like that, like they've got this big rocket garden, which is literally a like old rocket boosters all lined up outside in like a garden. And they're tall.
That is awesome. How long were you there for?
I was only in and out. I was there for one night, so I flew in the night before the conference. A coworker and I helped set up to get ready, and then and he's an SC. I actually was telling him about the podcast. He said he'd be on as a guest at some point, so we'll get him on as well. But
that's awesome.
So he and I went set up, and then had dinner, went to bed, got up the next morning, drove back over to Kennedy Space Center. Did the booth duty for the morning, and I gave a talk right before lunch. Yeah,
nice.
But it's a tiny little conference, so it was us and one other vendor that was a sponsor. There was only two vendors there, so it wasn't like anything crazy. It was nice. It was laid back. I gave my talk. I stuck around for lunch and some questions, and then headed back to the airport and came home same day. So I was home that night. But I'm getting ready to go on another flight tomorrow, so I was trying to get home as quickly as I could.
Back to back. I was in Vegas for most of this week, but sounds like you had a better experience. I was I know our listeners listen later, but this was for AWS reInvent.
AWS reInvent, yeah. So if you work in the technical world, I'm sure you're very familiar with AWS.
Pretty much. I think they said roughly 70,000 folks flew out to Vegas for this particular event.
Wow. That's massive. That's one of the biggest conferences.
A lot of demos
in tech. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, perfect for the topic of today's show, which is mastering the demo. But I want to quickly recap for those that are just tuning into this episode. Maybe you didn't listen to last week. We talked about building trust and rapport in our last episode. John even gave his 2 tips to start building rapport. But I think it was a good, honest conversation about how you genuinely build trust, how you genuinely build rapport. And I feel like the majority of my friends in my life I've made through my career. I've had these professional relationships that turn into really good friendships, and I think it's because of genuinely building rapport. John, what did you think of that episode last week?
Oh man, people buy from people they like, and building rapport is like lesson number one, right?
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah, people buy from people, they don't buy from companies, right?
Yeah. Yeah, especially
Or-
when you're taking a gamble on things like a startup or something like that. You got to have a lot of trust. You got to
Yeah.
really like the person. You're not just going to look at the tech and be like, "All right, this is it." You got to have some rapport there.
For sure. Yeah. So great topic. If you want to learn more and you didn't listen to last week's episode, go back, listen to episode 9. And in that episode, we'll talk to you about building trust and rapport. But in this episode, we want to talk about mastering the demo. I mean, I'm surprised it's taken us to episode 10, but I guess that the episode 10 is a milestone in itself. So I think it's appropriate that on the Altar of the Demo Gods podcast, we talk about demos. Facts. Yeah, so you just did a ton of them. So you've got, I bet you could do that demo in your sleep.
Well, to keep in mind, I am a subscriber of Medic, meaning there are only 3 things I like to tell people in the sales world of at least software you control: the demo, the POC, and pricing. Those are 3 things that you as a seller have control over. I like to keep the demo at bay, the perfect demo. But I do have a little demo that I like to call setting the hook. Can I give someone just enough of a taste to appreciate what I like? Now, what I hate about cybersecurity, and I'll say this, I'm bold enough now and experienced enough in my career, I am biased. I do not like cybersecurity for this reason, because they demand a demo. Other areas, other verticals, they're okay with it. But I like to call it setting the hook. Can I show someone 2-3 minutes worth of product to get them interested? Keep in mind, cybersecurity, you embarrass me. The fact that I identify with you, I'm getting personally heated that you demand it as an expectation. But for everyone else, I will give you 2 or 3 minutes.
So let me ask, when you're doing this setting the hook demo, my experience is all in cybersecurity, right? So that's my only point of view. You have outside perspective, which is good. So setting the hook, is that only for conferences? You're obviously, if you've got a scheduled demo with someone, you're not just doing a 2 or 3 minute demo, right?
Correct.
You're doing a full.
Very, very keen differentiator there. When you're setting a demo with someone, what Keith just said there, I normally ask for 30-45 minutes to show them a very specific and catered demo that associates to their use case. What is unique to them?
So let's clarify then. There are 2, at least for now, that we can count, 2 types of demos that you should be prepared to give. The first one is the setting the hook demo. That's what we'll call it for now until we come up with a catchier name. The setting the hook demo. All right. And then the other one is the custom tailored problem solving demo. That's
correct.
We can definitely come up with a better name for that one. Let's start with the setting the hook demo.
So setting the hook.
Tell me
why do we even call it that? If anybody's ever been fishing, you've been fishing, and that's what I call it, setting the hook. It's a bad way to do things. You throw a little bit of bait in the water and you feel a little nibble. If you feel a little nibble and you feel like it's real, setting the hook means you yank on your pole to make sure that hook sinks into whatever's biting on the other end. So what you're doing in that first setting the hook demo is that first little bit of, let me set out some bait into the water to see if someone's interested in what I'm showing. Show them enough of that, and then really reel it in for that more specific demo. Does that make sense about the analogy?
So let me play the skeptic and go, but John, I sell a really complex product. There's no way I could possibly set the hook in 2 or 3 minutes. There's just so many things that my product does. What do I do?
Yeah, good point. So I think it's always about getting the next meeting, right? Always about the preparation, always about the discovery. If you've listened to anything else we've talked about on our podcast up until now, driving business value is not as simple as solving one technical problem. if the one technical problem is that easy, maybe you do belong, selling demos in that way. But in more complex enterprise deals where you make a lot more money in sales, specifically in technical sales, you want to have enough of, I look at it as like a toolbox, Keith. I've gone to numerous mechanics and they got all these they got all these different tools. Some are in, millimeters, some are in inches. They have all these tools. If you went to a toolbox and you try to demo something from that toolbox, you don't have enough time or understanding of what the customer's problem is. So setting the hook is, I know you have a complex solution, but do you understand the customer's problem well enough to show them something that matters? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would even suggest, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you have multiple demos for setting the hook, but they still should be general use cases. What are because your product is still going to have main use cases. Your product might have a million features, but they're all based on centralized use cases, right? Or user stories. Correct. So identify, first you have to identify who's the user that you're talking to.
Yes.
Are you talking to an executive? Are you talking to an administrator? Are you talking to a data entry person? Who are you talking to and how are they going to be using your product? So I think if you can do that quick identification, and I'm not even talking about the custom tailor demo, but you quickly identify, say, John, you come up to me at a conference, we introduce ourselves and I say, hey, John, nice to meet you. My name's Keith. What do you do? Tell me a bit about what you do. That's the first question I'm going to ask. And I'm going to try and do it before you ask me, the vendor. Because if you ask me, what do you do? Then I'm stuck going, well, we do a bunch of stuff. So now I got to guess. It's much easier if I can get you first and say, what is it that you do, John? And you tell me what you do. And now I know, okay, here's the use case, at least I think, or the user story that's going to be most important to John.
No,
and I'm God. Also, if John tells me any problems that he has, I'm definitely jumping on those, right? But I still have I'm only going to show that use case, and then I'm going to set the meeting.
So for all our listeners, this is why Keith Wilson is definitively worth his weight in gold. And I would guess maybe weighs
you're such a sweetheart.
5 pounds, maybe 150. I don't know. That in gold is a lot of money. Because I'll tell you the honest to God truth, real world experience. I had a CEO roll up to me once, and rather than asking those simple questions of who are you and what do you care about? What do you do? Who are you in the zoo? Who are you in the zoo, sir? It was a guy at the time. I immediately went into a demo of a GCP BigQuery dataset table analysis. You know what the CEO doesn't care about? That.
Any of those words.
Those words are above and beyond what his value prop is and why he wants to do business with me. But I thought, well, this demo, even in 2 minutes, is going to win him over. I was wrong. Absolutely wrong. So yeah, understanding who you're talking to, what they care about, what's the value, all these things steer it. That's why cybersecurity, I'm so jaded. Just show me the demo. Well, I don't know what you do. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you care about. This applies to every field. Understanding those basic things Keith just summarized very quickly is what matters before I can even set the hook with a demo.
Yeah. Yeah, at least trying to understand what your role is. Maybe so you don't even necessarily have to share your pain points, but if you can, that's great. Otherwise, I'm going to have a general idea of what your persona is, what they'd call it in software development, right? What your persona's pain points are, and I got some things that I can show you in 2 minutes that are going to set the hook and get you to the next meeting, which is that full on customized, just for you problem solving demo.
Yeah, so I do have 2 points for setting the hook, though. I get this pushback all the time. Man, I feel like I got to ease up on the whiskey because cybersecurity makes me so angry. But there are 2 things you can do in a set the hook demo of 2 to 3 minutes. There is 2 simple questions that you can address in that sort of quick, easy demo. And I identify them as this. What problem do you solve and how do you solve it? If you have those 2 things defined, right? Whatever you sell, what problem do you solve? Cybersecurity software. What do we always talk about? Washers and nuts. I talked to some folks the other day. They in food services, they sell frozen foods. What problem do you solve? People are hungry and they want to eat fast. How do you solve it? I got a frozen meal you can cook in 5 minutes, right? What problem do you solve and how do you solve it is a very easy way to simplify a demo of setting the hook, in my opinion.
Okay. So now that we've got John's final thoughts on setting the hook, let's talk about the real demo.
Yeah.
This is the show. This is where the SE shines.
Yes.
But he shines because he does his preparation before he walks into that meeting. And
Yes.
he does some discovery. And hopefully, after he set the hook, he's built some rapport and he's had a bit of a conversation to better understand what the problem is. Right? Maybe the customer will even agree, or the prospect will even agree to a quick 5-10 minute call to discuss a little bit more about what problems they're having. Like, and this is where you meet the coaches and sometimes the champions too, that will tell you what the pains are. And if it's painful enough to them, or they get enough of a reward for it, they'll tell you exactly how to sell to their organization. Right. So they'll give you the map, and they'll tell you on the demo, okay, here's the problems we're having. Here's what we need to see in order to move forward with you. And that's doing that, to be blunt, to save time, right? Because if I can tell a vendor right up front, here's the 5 things I need you to show me and my boss in that demo tomorrow, and you go, that's great, I'll be happy to do that, can't wait to do that, and then we get on that demo and you can't show me those 5 things, gone.
Yeah. And
right?
You just destroyed your champion.
Yeah.
You just egg on their face, they look like a clown, and you've destroyed the trust.
Yeah.
Just summarize.
So it's in everybody's best interest, the customers and yours, to understand what your pain points are. So to spend a little bit of time talking to the sales engineer, or just shooting an email back and forth, just so you guys can better plan on what the demo is, and get what you want. I would recommend using some of that rapport that you've built up during, to before you get that next demo, to try and plan.
Yeah.
And research.
Here's why that's important too, because maybe you're going in there with a game plan. As a technical seller, what your product does well, and you have in your mind what I'm going to demo, right? And Mike Tyson said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Well, to Keith's point, you're doing a little bit of preparation, a little bit of discovery, and what this customer keeps telling you, you just know you don't do. You don't have to hide away from that. You can own it. You can say, look, other customers in your vertical have gained advantage from this, what I want to show you now. Or just be upfront and tell maybe your champion, we don't do that. I can't demo that. What should I do to address this problem or this concern, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's in sales. We're talking about objection handling, right? Mm-hmm. To where we need you to do this. Well, we don't do that. Okay, well, I need you to do that. Well, why do you need that? Getting to the root of it. The answer may be that truly is what they need. And that's the only thing that can solve it. And you just can't do it, and it's not going to work out.
Right.
But
yeah,
by owning up, and even if that sales deal ends, you've built that rapport so that maybe when they need your thing later, they're going to give you a call. And there's a saying, I think we've talked about this before too. There's 2 people that win in a sales deal. The person that wins the deal and the first person to walk away, right? Because they didn't waste their time on a deal they knew they weren't going to win.
You are correct. Like, always. And even then, and don't do this either. I'm advising everyone not to. Sometimes you can work with your organization and say, these are the actual requirements, right? I can't demo them today, but building a partnership with you as a customer, we are more than willing to build this in. So you gather valuable data to help your company grow holistically, where that input is very valuable. Good point.
Okay. So you've done your preparation. Here's the part where I see most SEs fail, and it's because they didn't do their preparation, but it comes out in this, and that's the presentation. Right. And I say that because you'll see it when an SE starts talking about every single use case that they're product covers, even the ones that have nothing to do with the customers they're talking to. So you can see that the switch go off in that prospect's head of like, well, this doesn't apply to me, so I'm going to tune out. Well, once they've
Right.
tuned out, it's really hard to get them to tune back in again.
Oh, that's almost Herculean task, right?
So when you're presenting, you want to set the hook again in the beginning, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You want to show them whatever's the most important to them. Show them that first, right? And then everything else can go backwards from there. But show them the things that are most important, most relevant to solving their problems that you've discussed. And if you can open up the meeting, because if you've done your right planning and stuff, you can open up with the meeting and say, we've discussed, and here's some of the obstacles you say you're running into, and here's how I believe my product can help you overcome those obstacles, right? And here's how I'm gonna prove these with my demo today, right? So if you can kind of follow that flow of, you told me this was your problem, I've got your solution, and I'm telling you it's my solution, it's a good solution, and now I'm going to back it up with evidence by demonstrating it to you. So think of your demo in that flow, because there is going to be talk and conversation first, and your overall presentation isn't just, well, we're here and we're looking at a screen and here we go, right?
Well, a little bit on that too. So normally what I ask for too in a deeper demo is a wider audience. So I don't think we covered this when we first started talking about it. Setting the hook, normally you're talking to one person and they're saying, okay, I got to show this to other people. One cool thing you can do as value add, again, another $1 million tip from John Morton and Keith Wilson. When you get in this second demo, to Keith's point, when you're doing a recap, you can say, well, just to validate what I heard and to validate what I understood about your business problem and the value I'm trying to provide, can you validate this is what I need to show you today? So it gives you an opportunity to ask a new audience more questions that revolve around discovery, and you can double down on that and then be audible, ready to pivot. But yeah, it's an excellent opportunity to leave and learn more.
Yeah, and as part of your preparation, if you can find out who's going to be involved in the demo, who's who in the zoo, and who's going to be involved in that demo, you want to know your audience as much as you can. I'm telling you, the more preparation you can do, the more at ease, the more confidence you'll feel when you're doing that demo. And when you hit a bump, it won't be that big of a deal because you've prepared for it and you've got plans.
You can't be over prepared, man. You can't be over prepared. It's easy in sales, both technical and regular sales, to be lazy, right? You can get up, make your phone calls, do your meetings, but the more time you spend in prep, in discovery, in thinking, in research, you're going to be a top tier seller. People calling in saying, I bought a yacht. That's what I like to hear. But it is critical, like, not to be lazy. And that's the hard part. Hardest easy job you'll ever have is in sales, period.
Yeah. So I want to give you a scenario, John, that you've probably run into before.
I'm ready.
And I want to see how you deal with it. So
I'm leaning in.
You've flown in the night before. You had a nice steak dinner with with an existing customer. You're happy to see him. Had a couple drinks. Didn't get drunk. Just had a couple drinks. Nice steak dinner. Nice meal. Took a shower. Got to bed on time. You wake up in the morning.
That doesn't sound like me, but all right.
You wake up in the morning. You've gone to worship at the altar of the demo gods to make sure that meeting
on.
Yeah, but so that meeting that you're about to have, at 9 a.m. You're now at the altar of the demo gods because you're hoping that things are going to go your way, right? You never know when it comes to the technical world if the demo gods will be in your favor, as they say. So you've done everything you can. You're ready to go. You go to the meeting, and the demo doesn't work. What happens? What do you do, John? Do you curse the gods in front of the clients?
I would say this is more common than not, number one. So more often than not, I'm prepared for this exact scenario because for whatever reason, maybe engineering didn't update the night before. I brought the wrong piece because I thought I had it in my bag and it's at the bottom and I couldn't find it because of the pressure. More often than not, this is a scenario. So, you know, normally this is where I like to work together as a team with my rep. But if it's just you, you can always say, look, here's where we're at. Let me start this demo, get as far as I can until we get to this little hiccup, whatever it may be. And my favorite go-to factor is I'm saying, and it's a quote, if AI is listening and trained on John Morton, which most likely it is, you know, a model of experience and goodness, I like to say verbally, this is proof of the jinx of the demo gods. And I giggle a little because everyone knows when you're trying to show the one thing you do well, whether it's your 5-year-old son trying to show you the backflip he can do, all right, you know, somebody you paid to do something or a demo like this, it's always going to go wrong. Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So I like to be honest in that moment and say, look, this is a jinx. This is a curse of the demo gods. Let me just work through this. And 99% of the time, customers or prospects are more than willing to give you a little leeway in figuring it out.
Yeah. So if the demo is not going your way, first breathe, right? Because I know for me, first thing I start to do is panic, right? In my head, all the thoughts are going, and when you do that, it's over, right? When your amygdala's been hijacked, it's already squirrel brain takes
Crocodile
over, and
brain.
you are done. It's not even croc brain because crocs are laid back. It's squirrel brain, right? It's on fire. So breathe. It's okay. This happens. People that work in technology completely get that technology doesn't always work. Apologize for it and use your backups. If you've prepped really well, you might have some options. You could have recorded pre-recorded videos. If you want to go above and beyond your job, pre-record some of the most important parts of your demo so you just have those ready to go and you can play them and talk to them as they're playing, or have them as slideware that you can click through. That's another option too. Or if you have a really simplistic UI or you're just trying to get a concept across, there's always whiteboarding and diagramming and drawing pictures as options until the problem is fixed.
Right. I like that solution there, Keith. I never tried to pull up any pre-recorded videos, but yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah. Another common problem, network access, right? Especially when you're presenting in a corporate office, getting access to their network. It's gotten easier over the years, but getting access to Wi-Fi at some places isn't always very easy to do, right? So if you need to access the internet in order to do a demo, you want to make sure that you have some sort of backup, whether that's your cell phone that you use as a hotspot, or if your
Yeah.
company provides you an actual hotspot. Having a secondary network connection has saved my ass so many times
Oh
with
God.
demos.
100%. Like, yeah. I mean, thank God now, like hotspots on cell phones are a lot easier to access. But even then, like I use Verizon. So when I go to certain areas, or, you know, parts of the country, that doesn't work. So like just being like to Keith's point, being ready. Can we have some sort of hotspot? You know, can we tether off of anything else, even recordings? Hopefully, you have some solution that you can even do native. That'd be amazing. But good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. I mean, if you can run it like from a virtual machine or a, VM or a Docker image or whatever, like awesome. Especially if you don't need any sort of internet connection, you can just run it locally on your machine. That's easier, right? Because it
Yeah.
eliminates. Well, it could be easier. It eliminates some other problems, but it's not necessarily always practical. Um, how do you keep people engaged during demos? 45
Oh,
minutes is a long time to click around a screen. What are you doing because you're not just clicking around a screen showing them thing after thing for 45 minutes. Tell me what you're doing to keep them engaged, John.
man. So this is a modern age problem that needs a better solution. But I'll tell you what I've been doing lately. So before, and when I mean before, I mean maybe we'll use the term pre-COVID. That makes sense to folks. Pre 2019, where folks were actually in an office. To keep folks engaged when they're in front of you is a little bit easier. You can make jokes. You can call someone out by their name. Again, remember, ask people their names, maybe learn a tidbit, kind of just get them involved in the conversation. You will always win. Now, that was pre-COVID. Post-COVID, where people are virtual, they don't even turn their cameras on. You have no idea who's actually paying attention. One of the most important things I've learned to use recently, here's one of those $2 million tips I'm about to drop on all y'all, is to pause and explicitly ask. Now wait in the uncomfortable silence. What does that mean? Let's say I demo something to Keith. I click on a button and it does something, it generates a port, it does some action. I will say explicitly, did you see what I just did, and does that make sense to you? I don't care if I wait for a good 3 minutes for someone to respond. I am waiting for someone to respond, because then you'll know, are they engaged? The cameras are off. All the mics are muted. If no one responds, you got to try something else. You got to get their attention. You got to get them involved. But that's one tactic I've been using lately, is show them something and then ask and wait in that awkward silence. And it is painful, especially for technical sellers, to wait, but you have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, somebody's going to answer eventually, right?
If they don't, then you're like, hey, man, is my mic on? Can you all see me? Like, is there a problem with the Zoom or whatever you're hosting it in? I don't know, man. It's a tough one, Keith. What do you recommend? It's a really
I think that's a great tactic, because truly, if you're sitting there for long enough and nobody answers, you can literally ask, hey, is anybody still on this thing? And if they're not, dump it, because they're not going to buy your thing anyway.
Right.
They're just wasting your time.
Also, you can get your champion. This is another thing. The champion from their side to chime in and force them to respond. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and generally the champion is somebody that the rest of the team respects. They, not necessarily in a leadership role, but usually somebody that is respected by others. Yeah. And champion or technical champion. If it's important enough to them, they're going to push for engagement and encourage engagement in others as well. So that's a really good point. Then I want to talk to one more piece of this, and it's something that I think a lot of people don't do, and that's the follow-up, the autopsy, as I'd like to call it, afterwards, right? Where you go back and you dissect to see what went well and what went wrong, what you can improve on, and just gather the feedback and see how you move forward, right? The follow-up part. So what do you do after you're done with meetings, your post-meeting practices?
I'm super bad about this, but here's what I actually do. So normally I work together as a team with an AE, an account executive, someone actually on the sales side. I make them own this aspect of it. Mm-hmm. We have to immediately follow up within the next 24 hours. Just saying, thank you for your time. Thank you for the demo. Do you have any outstanding questions? What I like to do on top of that is come over the top and reemphasize in bullets in an email what we covered. Here's what we covered. Back to the basics. Here's the problem we solved, and here's how we solved it. And I ask for the next step, whatever that next step may be. Do you want to talk about doing a proof of concept? Is there any outstanding questions where we can maybe resync with a new team? But you have to do these things. Normally I put it on the AE, but if it's just you, right? You are the seller and technical seller. You should do that. 24 hours. What happened? What'd you like? What's the next step?
Yeah. And I would say, let's talk traditional, where it's usually AE-SE relationship. So I would say immediately after every meeting, you should have 10 to 20 minutes scheduled with your AE to where you guys go over and do debrief on that meeting together. Mm-hmm. That should be the first person you should talk to. Again, take what their feedback is with a grain of salt on the positive, because they could have happy ears. But do listen to the suggested improvements, or where to go, or who to talk to, or listen to some of the cues that they picked up on the call. If they are telling you good things, question it. Ask them why they think this, why they think that. And if they can justify it, then great, right? That could help you. Also follow up with your champion, right? Ask them, how do you think the demo went? Is there anything else that you guys need to see? Did I forget anything? Find out. Your champion's going to give you that information. Your technical champion's going to give you that information. So make sure that you schedule follow-up with them as well.
100%.
And yes,
Good points, Keith.
The thank you is still very, very important. All right, John. So this was kind of an extra long episode, but I think
I felt like we could have went more, but because this is our level of expertise, it's the altar of the demo gods.
It is the altar of the
so
demo
we had
gods.
to set the hook with a little bit longer episode.
Yeah, I think we're going to revisit the demo subject many times on this podcast. So in the next one, we're going to dive in a little bit more about how to captivate our audience with presentation techniques. We hit on a bunch of them in this episode. I think we're due for a deeper dive in our next episode.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you've enjoyed the episode, if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to share with us, you can email us at demogodspod@gmail.com. You can check us out on YouTube. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts, or get all things Alter the Demo Gods by going to demogodspod.com. Keith Wilson here with my co-host John Morton. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on Alter the Demo Gods.